Yes, well, the highlight of this evening's reading is a new book. In Australia, there seem to be a lot of books published, but not many of them bought, if you know what I mean. The average, in the 1980s, the average sale of a single book by a single poet in Australia was 300. That's its whole, yeah. And I was very, very thrilled once when I sold 500. So novelists and that would be would consider it a failure, wouldn't they? But we think it's quite heroic if we sell a few. So tonight we're going to launch Andy Jackson's new book. It's Immune Systems, which gives you a clue as to its contents. Yes. I've written a short speech somewhere. I'm not used to writing speeches. I normally stand up and talk, but then I go on for hours.
While we go to sleep.
We're here to launch Andy Jackson's latest poetry collection, Immune Systems, published by the boutique publishing company Transit Lounge. This is Andy's third collection as far as I...
Third official.
Third official. There was a small chapbook in the middle.
Yeah, a few other little bits and pieces, but yes.
Really? Right. Following on from the 2013 Whitmore Prize-winning collection, The Thin Bridge. That collection has two of my favourite contemporary Australian poems, Elephant and, I've got here Getting to Know You, but that's wrong. What's the bathroom poem?
I remember we met.
I remember we met. I never know titles. Now this collection adds weight to my conviction that Andy Jackson is one of Australia's most talented contemporary poets. Way back in the last century, Ezra Pound said, "Only emotion endures," and that's the theme of today's sermon. Only emotion endures. Immune Systems presents a sensitive investigation into medical tourism in India. You have read about it in newspapers and journals, you've seen about it on television and current affairs programs, but this collection adds heart to the journalistic information. These immune system poems describe what Indian life is like at street level, but they also go deeper than this. They often present the experience through the eyes of an international patient. I was going to say poet, but some of them can be both. Yeah. And when I say present, I mean through imagery of the five senses. I'm not at all sure Andy went through all these experiences, but these poems are incredibly credible. Enough to occasionally bring a tear to this reader's eyes, which reminds me of an old saying about the best of writing. No tears in the writer, no tears in the reader. It's a wonderful saying that is fully illustrative of one of Immune System's greatest strengths. To illustrate, I quote some sections, some verses from one of the most powerful poems in the collection, Whatever Exists in the Universe. You'd be surprised to know it's one of the longest poems in the book too. The title like that, it's likely to be. For those of you that have your hymnals, it's on page 30. I'll just read certain bits of it. Between the footpath and the road, the shoe salesman unpacks his boxes again. His son dusts the 300 pairs with a cloth attached to a stick. They're debating the latest human development report on RSTV. Malnutrition, sanitation, infrastructure. It's hard to hear. Diwali celebrations, a war against night, a dense fog, smell of cordite. They come seeking spiritual wisdom and squalor, and find it. 5 die or more. The patients who survive get 1,000 rupees each for their blindness, expired eye drops, infected lenses. Life breaks on the head of the destitute. The train rattles over the suburb 1 story up. Near them all, roofs are made of thatch and banners from the last election. A satellite dish balanced on the one concrete wall. Crows compete over a rat. One beaks unspoils the pink innards. I'll skip some. And this is some of the journalistic facts put into a poem. It's a postmodern thing. 20,000 unlicensed medical factories, inspectors bribed, up to 25% of pills are fake. 1 child dies from encephalitis every 2 hours in Uttar Pradesh in a single hospital. 3 children per incubator in an epidemic ward. Last year, 60,000 women died during pregnancy or childbirth. 60% of the world's undernourished children live in India. Numbers stick in the throat. And here's a bit of copy that he's got from somewhere. India is an extraordinary destination, ideally suited for recovery and unwinding after a stressful surgical intervention. Our aftercare healing programs not only replenish lost energy, but also elevate it for spirited future living. Sometimes I'm afraid all my scars will tear open, or worse, that they already have. The potholes are filled with broken bricks and palm leaves. I don't want to get used to this, itch beneath bandages. And who has qualms about preferential treatment when it's life or death? So, I'd love to read you the whole thing, but I better not. This collection transcribes exotic scenes of everyday life for the poor of India, as the key theme revolves around 5-star luxury of hotels set up for international medical tourists. They are so intent on saving their money for necessary surgeries that they travel vast distances to save more money than the citizens of the cities they visit will see in a lifetime. The imbalance goes deeper. As these poems illustrate all too well, medical tourism draws Indian medical facilities and practitioners off the street level needy and to international pampered tourists. So it's not only showing the wild gulf between rich and poor, but it's taking their any facilities that the Indians have away from their own needy. Yes, we have all read about it before on telly and the news and all that, but only as cold hard journalistic facts. In MU Systems, Andy Jackson breathes life into these cold hard facts. We share the despairing pulse of life on Indian streets of the deformed and wretched, the desperately neglected of these scrawling cities. I say it again, no tears in the writer, no tears in the reader. But all the poems are not monomodal. They share rich veins of humanity deeply embedded in their lines. Let me illustrate with one seemingly simple haiku. This poem just knocks me out. Waiter asks me, "How many of you there?" Silence. Never has a second person singular pronoun carried so much ambiguity. There is one man in front of the waiter, a Western man shaped like a question mark, as Andy says elsewhere. Perhaps a medical tourist, or simply a visitor who must have companions around him. After all, Westerners always hunt in packs, don't they? The question asked tells a lot about the perceptions of the writerly subject to the object of that writer. Which brings me to another version of my own theme. No surprise in the writer, no surprise in the reader. I could go on describing my joy at these rich poems for hours. Anybody, Wayne? It is time for you to experience them for yourselves. For you are the second creative element of Andy Jackson's collection. So I hereby proudly announce Emu Systems launched! Hooray!